He dragged me naked up the stairs and locked me inside the closet. She cheated on me and threw a cocaine-fueled party in my own house in front of my young son. These dialogues are just a glimpse of the sick, tragic story that gave rise to one of the most incredible trilogies in rock and roll, but almost cost the lead singer his life, Axl Rose. Today I'm going to tell you the dark story behind the Guns N' Roses Illusion trilogy. I'm Guilherme, and you're watching Decifra Hits. In the early 90s, when Guns N' Roses released the songs Don't Cry, November Rain, and Estranged, few people realized that together they formed a trilogy, and that their story strangely resembled that of the lead singer, Axl Rose. With references to aggression, drug abuse, and mysterious deaths, the music videos in this trilogy are not just love stories as many people think. They reveal much more about the chaotic life of Axl Rose than meets the eye. The trilogy begins with Don't Cry, and the first scene of the music video reveals the origin of all these problems: the traumatic childhood of Axl Rose. When he was only 2 years old, his parents got divorced. His biological father did not accept the separation, kidnapped him, and raped him. Axl only found out about this as an adult, after undergoing regression therapy. In the baby's eyes, which are blue, remember this detail, we see a raven, which, as we already explained in the video about Other Side by Red Hot Chili Peppers, is the representation of death. This represents the symbolic death of the child within him, whose development was criminally interrupted at such a young age. Right after that, we see Axl walking in a freezing environment, which, according to him, represents being trapped in time, in a painful cycle that keeps repeating itself. And indeed, after his father ran away, his mother married another equally violent man who beat him and his siblings and sexually abused his sister Amy. This cycle continued into Axl's adult life, and after growing up in such a troubled environment, he came to see domestic violence as something commonplace. In fact, this scene where he fights with the woman over a gun is based on a real incident from his life, which you'll understand in a moment. For now, it's enough to know that Axl developed very toxic relationships in his adult life. Just so you have an idea, out of all his girlfriends, at least 7 were addicted to alcohol and cocaine. By the way, of the 2 versions of Don't Cry that were recorded, the first one actually originated from one of these toxic relationships. In the early 1980s, even before the band Guns N' Roses was formed, Axl Rose used to perform in bars and nightclubs in Los Angeles with his band Hollywood Rose, which also included his childhood friend, Izzy Stradlin. At that same time, a mysterious woman named Monique Lewis was dancing sensually in one of those nightclubs, and she ended up getting involved with both Axl and Izzy without either of them knowing. One day, Axl was drinking beer and smoking a cigarette in front of the Roxy nightclub when he saw his friend Izzy Stradlin coming out of the club and kissing goodbye the woman he was hopelessly in love with. Axl dropped his beer glass from his hand, put out his cigarette, sat down on the sidewalk, and started to cry. That's when Monique went up to him, and in an attempt to comfort him, she just kept saying, "Don't cry, don't cry." That phrase stuck in Axl's mind, and he went to Izzy's house that same night. Instead of arguing, they came together and wrote Don't Cry, one of the most spectacular rock ballads, in just 5 minutes. They liked the song so much that they recorded a demo and performed it at every show. In a short time, Don't Cry became the most requested song in the clubs and started to attract the attention of managers. In 1985, they finally formed the band Guns N' Roses, and after the demo of Don't Cry ended up in the hands of Geffen Records in 1986, they got their first contract. Much of that was due to Joseph Brooks's help, an important DJ and radio host in the Los Angeles rock scene, whom Axl Rose made a point to thank at the end of the Don't Cry music video. By the way, also as a form of gratitude, Axl even got Monique, the muse who inspired Don't Cry, tattooed on his right arm. But in 1987, when the band's first album, Appetite for Destruction, was released, something took all the fans by surprise. Even though the album included iconic hits like Sweet Child O' Mine and Welcome to the Jungle, it didn't include the track Don't Cry. The reason for this was purely strategic, as Axl Rose explained in an interview in '91. People were upset that we didn't put Don't Cry on the first album, but we were just trying to save what we considered our ace up our sleeve, because we didn't know if we were going to sell 5 copies or whatever. Another song that was also held back because it was still incomplete was November Rain, which Axl Rose had been composing since '83 when he was still in guitarist Tracy Gunn's band, LA Guns. During the band's rehearsal breaks, whenever he found a piano, Axl Rose would sit down and play the melody of November Rain, as Tracy Gunn said. When we were making our EP for LA Guns in '83, he was already playing that song on the piano, and he was already calling it November Rain back then. And he would say, "One day this is going to be amazing." So I would say, "It's already amazing now." And he would reply, "But it's not finished yet." Yeah, because Axl was so determined to perfect this song that he promised to give up his career if November Rain didn't turn out perfect. It was only in '91, 4 years after the first album, that the band realized they had really taken off. So they decided to finish the unfinished songs and create new ones. They got together in a studio in Chicago for an intense creative session where they not only finished Don't Cry and November Rain, but also produced way more songs than would fit on a single album. As Axl Rose said, Easy brought at least 8 new songs. Slash brought enough songs for a whole album. And I brought enough songs for a whole album too. So we have like about 35 songs that we like and want to release all of them. And they really did it. On the same day, September 17, 1991, the albums Use Your Illusion 1 and 2, together totaling an incredible 30 songs, were released in a historic release. No other band had ever released 2 albums on the same day, sold over 1 million copies in the first week, and reached the top 2 spots on the Billboard charts before. But for Axl to get to this point was not easy at all. 3 songs from this album were written after a period of intense pain and suffering for the lead singer, and reveal serious problems that almost ended his life. For you to understand this, I need to introduce you to Erin Everly.
I'd like to introduce my wife, Erin.
Hello.
Victor Everly Rose.
Hello.
Don't be fooled by appearances, because it was this relationship that started the worst year in Axl Rose's life. Erin and I treated each other like crap. Sometimes we treated each other well because the children inside us were best friends. But at other times, we just completely screwed up each other's lives. They met in '86 and started dating that same year. She was the muse who inspired great Guns N' Roses hits like the classic Sweet Child O' Mine. But their relationship wasn't as healthy as you might think. Just so you have an idea, Erin said that the way Axl proposed to her was by showing up at her house at 4 a.m. with a gun and threatening to kill himself if she didn't marry him. On April 28, 1990, they went to a small chapel in Las Vegas, where they got married in a quick ceremony. A month later, Axl filed for divorce, but soon after changed his mind. In the same year, Erin got pregnant, which brought immense joy to Axl's life as he dreamed of having a child. But unfortunately, she suffered a miscarriage after just a few months of pregnancy, which deeply affected Axl Rose. He went to his room, opened the drawer where he kept his gun, and threatened to kill himself again. Erin tried to disarm Axl, and the two started fighting over the gun, which could have easily ended in tragedy. Eventually, Axl let Erin win the fight and take the gun. But from then on, things became unsustainable. In November 1990, while Axl was recording tracks for the album Use Your Illusion, Erin Everly broke up with him. All of that affected Axl so intensely, it's as if he buried a part of himself. That even ended up changing the course of the recordings, as he said in an interview. While I was recording the original version of Don't Cry, I started imagining another melody and other words in my head. That really surprised me. So I told our producer, "Put me on another track now. I don't know what's happening, but I have a different song forming in my head, and I want to get it recorded. Axl recorded a completely new version of Don't Cry in just a few minutes, this time much more visceral and intense, reflecting exactly the pain he had felt in recent years. The band really liked the new version and they didn't want to discard the original either, but since they were willing to release 2 albums at the same time, they decided to keep both versions of Don't Cry. The original was placed as the 4th track on the first album, and the alternate version as the 13th track on the second album. The situation with Aaron Everly also inspired Axl Rose to finish November Rain and write a new song, which he named Estranged. But unlike the lyrics, the music videos in this trilogy have other inspirations. They are much more symbolic and bring up other conflicts in Axl's life and the lives of the other members, revealing the chaotic situation the band was going through at the time. To understand this, I now need to introduce you to a new character in this story, Adalberto James Miranda, better known as Del James. Del James is a writer and a longtime friend of Axl Rose. In the documentary Making Fucking Videos, James said that on a certain night, around 4 in the morning, Axl Rose called him and asked him to come over to his house. Because he needed to vent about his stormy relationship with his then-girlfriend, Erin Everly. James liked to write horror stories, and when he heard Axl venting, he was inspired to create a story, which he called Without You. The story narrated the tale of Manny, the lead singer of a famous rock band, addicted to drugs and alcohol who had it all. Fame, money, success, but he ended up becoming reclusive and depressed after suffering the harsh effects of his unbalanced life. It's the perfect cycle. The music videos of the trilogy were based on this fictional story, which in turn was inspired by the real story of Axl Rose and Erin Everly. But with Del James's dark creativity, the story, and therefore the videos, took on much deeper proportions, and ended up revealing a dark side of Axl Rose that even he hadn't realized. Del James basically showed Axl that his behavior was about to kill him, as Axl wrote in the preface to the story. Del James called me and said, "I just wrote the death of my best friend." For me, the story Without You helped me realize what could happen in my life. He paints a vivid picture of people, and these stories helped me not to destroy myself. Knowing the story of Without You, it becomes much easier to understand the whole meaning of the Illusion trilogy. In the story, the rock star Manny is in love with Elizabeth and used to take her along to all his shows and tours. On one of those tours, Elizabeth said she couldn't make it, which frustrated Manny. After the show, Manny decided to spend the night with 2 women in his hotel room. Elizabeth had managed to get a plane ticket and decided to show up at the hotel as a surprise, where she caught him cheating. This moment is depicted in the music video for Don't Cry, in this scene filmed at the Chateau Marmont Hotel in Los Angeles. The actress who plays Elizabeth is the supermodel Stephanie Seymour, who at the time of filming this video was dating Axl Rose. By the way, their relationship managed to be even more toxic and unhealthy than the previous one, and soon you'll understand why. For Axl, it wasn't easy at all to film these scenes, because they reopened a painful wound that still hadn't healed. Especially the scene where he reenacts the fight over the gun he had with Erin, and the scene where he and Stephanie are sinking together. While she has a calm expression and he struggles to reach the surface, it's as if right after the fight, everything calms down, and I feel like I'm being drowned by this relationship. "This person is at ease and I'm still drowning in this mess," said Axl Rose. The trilogy exposes the chaos not only in romantic relationships, but also among the band members themselves, as the director of the music videos, Andy Moran, said. The videos show the fractured state of the band at the time. Everything was falling apart. In this sense, the videos are less of a coherent story and more of a portrait of the band. Although he recorded some vocals for the album, guitarist Izzy Stradlin did not appear in the video shoots. In fact, in one of the scenes, we see a sign that says, "Where is Izzy?" Sometime later, it was revealed that he had left the band because of internal conflicts. All this chaotic atmosphere is also symbolized in these scenes, where the bassist Duff McKagan fights with the actress Clary Stansfield. And Slash fights with the actress Bridie Grounds inside a Shelby GT 350. After the argument, Slash loses his patience and drives the car off a cliff with the woman inside, but he manages to escape. Slash then grabs his Les Paul guitar and throws it off the cliff without any remorse. Sometime later, they found the smashed guitar, and Slash took it to the Rainbow Bar in Los Angeles, as he mentioned in this interview here.
Slash, there are so many cool things here at the Rainbow Bar. Is there any item that's special to you?
There are a few things, but the coolest one is that guitar over there that I smashed during the filming of Don't Cry. I threw it off a cliff and...
How did they recover it?
I brought it here, all smashed up in that box underneath it, and somehow they managed to put it back together. It's way better than when I brought it here. The neck broke, you can see it, and the whole bottom part of the body came off and all that.
I like that it says oops on it.
Yes.
After the cliff scene, we quickly see an image of a flyer for a show by the old band Hollywood Rose. The flyer shows Axl Rose and Izzy Stradlin in '84, and it was another way for Axl to pay tribute to his friend in the video. He said that this hospital room scene wasn't planned. This was supposed to be a conversation between him and Izzy Stradlin in a hotel room, but they had to improvise after Izzy didn't take part in the filming. So the idea was to show Axl in a psychiatric ward, interacting with all his different personalities and moods. Axl had just been diagnosed with severe bipolar disorder through sessions with his therapist. In fact, in these scenes, that's not an actress. It's actually Susie London, Axl Rose's real-life therapist, who appears here treating him. While talking to her, we can see that he's wearing a Red Hot Chili Peppers shirt. And even more interestingly, we see a Nirvana cap. Yeah, ironically, Axl Rose was a big fan of Kurt Cobain's band, but unfortunately the feeling was far from mutual. After Axl found out that Kurt despised and kept bad-mouthing Guns N' Roses, they ended up starting one of the biggest feuds in rock history. But that's a topic for another video. Another great 80s band that Guns pays tribute to in the video is Jane's Addiction. Axl appears wearing the band's shirt, while Guns performs on top of the old Transamerica Center in Los Angeles. Along with Axl, we see singer Shannon Hoon, the late lead vocalist of the band Blind Melon, who was also invited by the band to record this song. After this performance, the song ends with some mysterious scenes. A lot of people can't understand how the songs in the trilogy are connected and what the correct order of the tracks is. But there's a detail in these last scenes of Don't Cry that makes the whole trilogy connect and make sense. To understand this detail, we first need to look at the music video for November Rain, the most famous song in the trilogy. One of the biggest mysteries of November Rain, without a doubt, is how the bride dies. But as Del James himself said, the answer is right there in the short story that inspired the music video. The first scene, where Axl is getting ready to sleep, is actually the end of the November Rain story. In other words, this scene takes place after the bride's death. The short story Without You also starts the same way. Maine is depressed and only sleeps with the help of medication, drugs, and alcohol. And when he sleeps, he spends the night having horrible nightmares, in which he relives the tragic death of Elizabeth. This explains why there are so many nonsensical things in the music video, like a church that was huge and suddenly looks small in the middle of the desert, mixed with real events like the wedding and the funeral scenes. That's why it's so hard to understand the progression of the music video. The scenes in November Rain are shuffled out of order. Some memories even take place before the events of Don't Cry, like this scene at the Rainbow Bar, where everyone is happy and the couple is having fun with friends, which shows that this is the beginning of the relationship. But the wedding happens later when some things are already much darker. If you pay attention to the music video, you'll notice that at several moments the bride seems hesitant and worried. For example, when Axl lifts her veil, she has this visibly sad expression. And after the wedding, when they get in the car, she seems to look off into the distance, as if she's regretful and wants to run away. In other words, something wasn't right about that wedding. This becomes evident in the statue of Christ shedding tears of blood. In the Bible, this image symbolizes repentance. The reason for all of this is Manny's betrayal and Don't Cry. They tried to reconcile, but things would never be the same again. After the wedding, Slash leaves the church and launches into one of rock's most badass guitar solos. A lot of people talk about how iconic this solo is, but in my humble opinion, the solo at the end of the song manages to be even more awesome. As a fun fact, this solo was recorded in New Mexico, which is an American state. In the documentary Making Fucking Videos, Axl Rose has already talked about how these scenes were recorded. Slash wanted to do the solo in a green field, but at that time of year, all the fields were dead. We looked everywhere for churches, and none of them had a good view or a field. Until we found this church facade on wheels that had been used for the filming of the movie Silverado. And it was perfect. According to director Andy Morahan, the filming was not easy at all. We filmed all day with 5 or 6 cameras, just to get 30 seconds of footage. It was ridiculous, but it's an iconic moment. Things were so hardcore that Slash even said he thought he was going to die during the filming. The director didn't warn me that they would do some helicopter dives toward me while filming that part. It came fast and flying low near me. I thought I was going to die. I had already accepted that it was going to be the end for me. It was normal for the kind of life we were living back then. After Slash's iconic performance, the most mysterious and enigmatic part of the video begins. The wedding reception. The scenes were filmed at Villa del Sol d'Oro, a place that can still be booked for parties and events today. Everything seems to start off well with the newlyweds cutting the cake and celebrating with their friends, until, at a certain moment, the dreaded November rain begins to fall. The guests run for cover. Here, the rain is a metaphor for suffering, but there's something strange about the way these people react. The way they run desperately and throw themselves over things seems to indicate that something much more dangerous than just a simple rain is happening. The bottle spilling wine on the table symbolizes that during the party, blood was shed. And to understand what happened at that moment, we need to go back to the story Without You. Manny was desperate. After 2 days of calling Elizabeth without getting any answer, he decided to go to her apartment. He wanted to sing her a song he had written called Without You, where he apologized and tried to make amends. Manny took the elevator and went up to her floor. When he got there, he heard the sound of a gunshot echoing through the hallway. Manny ran to her apartment door, knocked until he managed to break it down, and found Elizabeth sitting on the couch, with a gun near her hand and most of her head splattered on the wall behind her. That's why, in the November Rain music video, we see a mirror hiding half of the bride's face. This is a technique used by funeral homes when the face of the corpse is disfigured, because the mirror reflects the intact side, giving the impression that it is whole. Manny wakes up from his nightmare, and in the middle of the night, he decides to visit Elizabeth's grave. At that moment, a very dark thought crosses his mind, as director Del James explains. In the midst of a self-destructive crisis, he finally gathers the courage to sing the song to his wife, who is now dead. But just like in any good story, there's a twist. Now he'll have to make a choice. And if everything goes well, the video will bring that answer. The video James was referring to is the next clip in the trilogy, Estranged, which was originally supposed to continue the story of November Rain. In it, Axl Rose and Stephanie Seymour would act together again, finally clarifying what happened to Elizabeth and Manny. But something bizarre happened after the filming of November Rain, which forced the band to change all the plans for the trilogy. When Stephanie Seymour was hired for the filming of the trilogy, she and Axl didn't know each other yet, but within a few days they fell in love and began an intense relationship. Stephanie had just had her first child, Dylan, from another relationship. During the 2 years they were together, Axl developed a strong affection and connection with Dylan. He tried to be a good father figure, something he hadn't had in his own life. However, the relationship between Axl and Stephanie was becoming more and more destructive. She cheated on Axl with several different men and threw cocaine-fueled parties in Axl's house with Dylan present. When Axl found out about this, he broke up with her and filed a restraining order against her. Stephanie fought back with another lawsuit in which she claimed she suffered various assaults from Axl. To make matters worse, she invited Axl's ex-wife, Erin Everly, to testify against him. Erin then also sued Axl for physical and even sexual abuse. She claimed that once, when Axl was very angry, he dragged her naked up the stairs and locked her in a closet for hours. Later, he came back and dragged her out of the closet, threw her on the bed, and raped her. Sometime later, the charges were dropped and they settled out of court for a few $1 million from Axl Rose. But the damage was already done. Axl fell into a deep depression. The video for Estranged, which was originally supposed to feature Stephanie and Dylan, was obviously compromised. The director suggested finding another beautiful woman to replace Stephanie. To which Axl replied, "I don't want any more beautiful women in my videos. I'd rather have dolphins." That explains the completely random dolphin scenes in Estranged. The video starts with the definition of the word illusion. And then we see empty swings indicating that he hoped to have a child there. Stephanie forbade Axl from seeing Dylan, and to make things worse, she told her son that he had abandoned him. That left Axl heartbroken, and since he knew he would never be able to see him again, he decided to include him in the music video. As he said in this interview,
"This video is also a way of communicating with Dylan. He's someone I'm not allowed to communicate with, and someone who thinks I abandoned him. But I didn't abandon him."
In the video, we see Axl lying on a shelf in Dylan's room while the police raid his house. That was a very sentimental moment for Axl, as he said in the documentary. "Ever since Dylan left, I always found myself lying there just looking at his room. When it was time to shoot that scene, I lay down on the shelf. There was the whole thing with the SWAT breaking into the house, and I was kind of oblivious to all of it. I ended up falling asleep right there. And I had the most peaceful sleep of all, because I really needed to do that, to be in his room. It was a very strange way to spend time with Dylan in my own mind. Yeah, Axl literally slept and dreamed about his son on that shelf. And those dreams are shown in the music video with images of the two of them together. While he's sleeping, the police break into the house looking for him. Some people say this represents Manny being wanted for the murder of Elizabeth, since he appears leaving a gun store in the November Rain music video. But that would go against the plot of the short story Without You. Actually, Manny went to the gun store after Elizabeth's death. He intended to join her in paradise. In the story, he even tries to use the gun, but it was out of ammo. In this scene, we see the definition of stranded: separation from the environment you're used to, or from people close to you. A clear allusion to Dylan, and right after that, another definition: to develop mutual enmity or indifference where there was once love, affection, and friendship. An allusion to Stephanie Seymour. In one of the scenes, we can see this Brazilian woman. She was hired as Dylan's nanny when Stephanie and Axl were together, and later she ended up staying on as Axl's personal assistant. Her name is Beta Libas. Remember that name well. Manny spends the entire music video being followed by images of dolphins wherever he goes. This was the way the production found to represent the image of Elizabeth, who never left Manny's mind, and who seemed to always be guiding him so that he would join her in paradise, until Manny finds a way to carry out his painful plan. He goes to the deck of the oil tanker, climbs onto the railing, and throws himself into the sea. Gilby Clarke, the guitarist who replaced Izzy Stradlin, throws a lifebuoy to rescue his friend, but he refuses. Then, bassist Duff McKagan arrives in a boat, reaches out his hand, but he is also ignored. This scene represents a passage from the story Without You that says, "With all the doctors, therapists, fans, and the whole crew trying to help him, he ended up sinking deeper and deeper into his own cocoon." Eventually, the dolphins reach him, while Slash appears with another epic solo in the middle of the ocean. And even though the last scene shows him being rescued, the truth is that here he was already lifeless, as Axl said in the documentary. The dolphins were meant to evoke a sense of peace and grace. That wasn't the original intention. The next scene was supposed to show me going to paradise, but I didn't want to film that. This matches the story of Without You, where Manny is in his apartment that's on fire, finally decides to play the song for the late Elizabeth on his piano, and doesn't stop until he's consumed by the flames. The last scene with Axl next to the dolphin seems to be a message to himself and to the fans. Lose your illusions with love. Axl from Guns N' Roses. In other words, don't create expectations in others, only in yourself, and this also applies to Dylan, since he ended up being deceived by his mother who wanted to keep him away from Axl. But if you think the trilogy ends here, you're very mistaken. Remember when I said there were details in Don't Cry that connected all the stories? So, Axl said in the documentary, I don't know anyone who has made a music video like this, showing their own emotional destruction and the process of transcending it. It's a very intense song, because it represents a battle, and it's a battle that hasn't necessarily ended yet. It's at a point where the question is whether he'll transcend this or not. And that answer is exactly at the end of Don't Cry. In this scene, we see Axl describing the therapist, a demonic version of himself. Yes, the one who was buried, who died in 1990, the year he broke up with Erin Everly. According to Axl, this character represented his shadow, a side of himself he was learning to deal with. A part that had been buried but was struggling to come to the light again, because you need to face these inner demons in order to truly know yourself. He goes on to say that the metaphor of the green demon is also related to reincarnation, and that's exactly what we see at the end of the music video, with Axl visiting his own grave and witnessing his own rebirth. Here, instead of the raven from the beginning of the music video, we have a white dove, which symbolizes peace and hope. The cycle is completed by showing the baby again in the last scene, emerging from a baptismal font. But while the baby at the beginning had blue eyes, this new baby has green eyes the same color as Axl Rose's eyes, and the color of the tortured demon who, at last, reached the light and returned to life. In the same way that the trilogy begins, Don't Cry ends it, as if it were an eternal cycle of learning and evolution. While things didn't end well for Manny, for Axl things were different. He was one of the few rock stars of the 90s who, despite a turbulent and traumatic past, faced all those ghosts that haunted him, and instead of trying to hide them, he managed to understand them, to express himself through them. And in doing so, he forged a new, more evolved version of himself. A big part of that is thanks to Beta Labias, the Brazilian woman who not only became Axl's secretary, but also his best friend, and even more the mother figure he never found. Being there, taking care of him, listening and advising him in the most difficult moments of his life, and whom he made a point to thank upon his return to the stage after 7 years in seclusion, live at Rock, in Rio, 2001. According to Axl, he might not be alive if it weren't for her. Stories like this just show how important it is for us to look at a part of ourselves that we often ignore. That's exactly what the vocalist James Hetfield from Metallica did when he created the classic Nothing Else Matters. Even knowing that he could be eternally hated by his own fans because of this song. To learn more about this story, just click on this video. Thank you for staying with us. See you in the next video.